Howdy YouTube. I decided to start my morning by making a video. This is my second take. I wanted to give this a quick run through before I started my day. I want to talk about the mammalian and reptilian brains. Now, the basic idea and the theory behind this, regardless of whether you back evolution or not, I just quickly want to go over this theory, is that you have a three-brain system. On the top you have the logical brain, which deals with things like language and thought and communication between people, constructed language, English language, and then underneath that you have the mammalian emotional brain, and underneath that you have the reptilian brain. Now, I want to discuss those bottom two bits today, because it occurred to me that this is a very important topic, and I've been reading over some books on kind of like male character, and all the same questions essentially seem to come up, and I put two and two together and realised what's really going on, at least I think so. And, okay, first a little bit about the mammalian brain. The mammalian brain is like our emotional centre, and its fundamental mission is to seek like love and approval. It's basically trying to find excuses to like dump serotonin into your system so you can feel good about yourself. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Morally, it's just the way it is. But when you start to add in other things on top of that, it gets very challenging, confusing. Now, let's also throw into the stew the reptilian brain, which is kind of like our evolutionary holdover from millions of years ago when we're still swimming around, and like waddling around on land. Basically, it's always asking the question, do I want to have sex with it, or do I want to kill it? In regards to that. And if it doesn't push your button, then that part of you won't be activated. But if it does, you will know it will, because you will fly out of control. Now, add into the mix the desire to seek, like, status and approval and acceptance and trying to feel all of that. And then add onto the top your logical brain trying to make sense of it all through language. You're in a real pickle right now. You're in a real awkward state. And it's my real kind of permanent idea, permanent theory, I guess, that I want to get across here, is that all problems of character and all crises of what to do are caused by the conflicts in these brains. Every single issue. Every single problem in terms of our actions and what we do is caused by the need to try and find approval, or the need to try and find security. We're always running like on a mad mission a lot of the time to try and find security and approval and intimacy and all of these things. And I think the problem and the challenge that's arisen in society is that, particularly for men, as an example, we have not been taught how to deal with these things. We've been taught very terribly. We've been taught by people who are not taught themselves. And so we essentially run into a major conflict and crisis of character. Now, in a society where men go to work from 9 to 5 and don't raise their children, and don't raise their sons and their daughters, to basically learn how to deal with these fundamental conflicts, you end up with people who have no idea how to treat them. They've received no emotional education. No real kind of emotional muscle has been developed. So these things just kind of fly off the handle, and they just go all over the place, and end up leading to basically creating personas for people. They end up leading to creating societal issues on a grand scale. Domestic abuse, for one thing. Where do you think that comes from? The reptilian brain. When another issue would be, I think women would complain how there aren't any real men anymore. Now, I think when you're raised by your mother in this society, you end up becoming a total wussbag. And you end up having no grounding, essentially, in your own balls, if you don't have control over the reptilian part of your brain, over the emotional part of your brain. I think the trick and the way out of this system that we're in, this kind of conflict and kind of negotiation between all these different parts of our own head. Firstly, I would grant myself approval. I would grant myself the approval to do whatever I wanted to do, regardless of the situation and circumstance. Now, I think nearly everyone is prone, in fact everybody on the planet is kind of addicted to the process of rationalizing and sticking what they think they're doing over the top of what they actually are so they can feel good about themselves and kind of justify all these mental societal programs and social conditioning that's been running in our heads. My answer to that is, who are you trying to please? Social conditioning is really, it's a big con because it doesn't exist, and trying to basically, in my opinion, trying to get across and try and live like in someone else's way is really just the ultimate total forgery, because you're trying to live up to someone else's standard, and that standard actually doesn't really actually even exist. Not objectively, you're filling in the blanks and trying to fill in the patchwork to try and make it make sense. That's why I don't believe in religion or theology as a kind of verbal thing. And I certainly wouldn't try to live someone else's. I'd just have to live my own experience and gradually piece it together. That is my opinion. It's the only way you can do it. So, when you're at the position in the place where you are constantly trying to ping your reality to try and get approval and security, and these things can kind of basically create a toxic emotional stew which can lead to people being depressed. And the way out of that is very, very difficult, because your mammalian and reptilian brains don't speak English. They don't speak words. You have to basically claw your way out of a kind of incredibly difficult situation, which was almost handed to you by the way of your own nature and the way of the people who are around you. It's a kind of a process and a system that runs on autopilot, and to get out of it is very, very difficult. To get out of this kind of emotional, physiological, energetic stew, this bind that you're in, can take years. But it is possible. You just have to find influences and systems to help you do the exact opposite. Just do what you have to do. That's why doing it is so important. That's why just do it is such an amazing marketing slogan and bit of advice for life. Because when you just do it, your emotional and reptilian brains perk up and pay attention because you're speaking their language. So that's my piece of advice. And if anyone is in a situation where they feel awkward, where they feel constrained and weird, where they feel like their strings are being pulled by parts and they don't even know are real, and it's a kind of horrible I'm in the Matrix kind of feeling, my advice to you is to basically chill out, because you're not alone. And everyone is running this conflict. Everyone is running these things on autopilot without them realizing. Everyone's trying to get laid. Everyone's trying to basically get some food in their stomach. And everyone's trying to basically get approval from others all the time, not realizing. These are like three of the systems that just run for us constantly. And my whole solution to the approval thing is basically to not need it. Is to give it to yourself. And never try and get into a relationship where you try and force someone to give it to you, because that's false. It's not real. It's certainly not what you want. And it won't give you the sense of security and approval and emotional depth that you're looking for. It's just not possible. You wouldn't want it even if they gave it to you, because it would be fake and contrived. So that's my thought for the day. Basically, this is the kind of world that you live in. It's the kind of world that I live in. And as someone who tries to claim greater awareness for himself, this is just another mission and another personal quest to get around. And the only way to get through it, the only way to take control and really grant yourself the utmost foremost character of a hero, which is something that we need in our society, is to take control over those parts of your brain and really live your life to the fullest, and don't deny your own impulses, and clean it out as much as you can. Okay, I think that's my thought of the day. Talk real soon.